Welcome to AppStories. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Vitici.
Hey, John.
Hi, we are here for a very special episode of AppStories from the Apple Podcast Studio at Apple Park.
It's so fancy.
It's very fancy, and we are here to interview some of the finalists and winners of the Apple Design Awards for 2023. And our first guest today is Zach Gage, the maker of Knotwords. Hi, Zach.
Hey, how's it going?
It's good to talk to you again. We last interviewed you in July of 2018.
Oh my God, the whole world was different.
It really was different then. I mean, that was the 10th anniversary of the App Store, and we did a big blowout coverage of that in a bunch of episodes of AppStories and articles on the site. And we talked to you because indie game development is one of our passions, and we've loved all your games. But here, we really have. And we are here today, though, to talk about Knotwords, because you're a finalist for the ADAs with Knotwords. Tell us a little bit about what the game does and how it works.
I think the shortest pitch for it is that it's like Sudoku meets crosswords. It's one of those little tiny logic games, but with roots in words. And so in a game like Sudoku, you have a lot of techniques that are rooted in logic, and when you see one, that's the answer. And Knotwords has a very similar kind of thing. There are techniques and ideas, but they're all about the structure of words. And so they are frequently true, but sometimes not true, and it kind of gives a different kind of feel to that kind of classic logic game.
Yeah, and I get that. And I think what's really unique about some of your games is the way they grab people and the way that people really, I guess it's both the design and kind of the interaction aspect of it. Because I'll tell you, my wife doesn't play a lot of games on her iPhone, but she plays.
Yeah. If it gets the Jennifer approval, then you're done.
She plays Knotwords every single day, and she absolutely loves it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a fantastic game. And over the years, I've watched as you've kind of evolved the game a little bit. From when we reviewed it originally on MacStories, you've added various aspects to it. Could you talk a little bit about what you've done since it was released?
Yeah, I think, we've tried to refine what we have, and we have some ideas about new puzzle types that we're sort of working on. But in addition to that, the biggest thing has just been, the end part of app development is such a mad rush to actually being able to get the thing out. And I think there are always things that you don't have perfectly finished. So a big one was iCloud support, which I think is huge, especially for Knotwords, because we have different size puzzles throughout the week. And so being able to play the Sunday puzzles on your iPad, but the Monday puzzles on your phone, I think is really a big part of how I always imagined people would enjoy the game. And then just refining the puzzles. There's a sort of monthly set of puzzles that are thematic and interesting and different, and being able to make those better. We actually are just prepared a whole new slew of categories. So if you've been playing for a long time, you're probably used to seeing a very specific set of categories in those puzzles. And now we're going to have a whole new set of categories coming soon.
Oh, very cool.
So
very cool.
Usually when I ask you this question, there's usually a good answer. Where did the inspiration for this game come from?
Sure. So this was one that we worked on for a very long time. We had previously developed a game that we didn't end up releasing, where you had a bunch of letters that you were placing into a grid. So there were some fixed letters, and you were placing the rest and trying to make it fit. And the idea with that game is, for a very, very long time, I've been chasing this idea of these simple logic games that this company, Nicoli, is very famous for these. They popularized Sudoku. They have numbergram or like Picross style games, like this whole set of these little games that are primarily a game where the rules are simple. You can play it on one sheet of paper. You can just get it and see it, and then you can play it with a pencil. And that the biggest thing about these games is they don't have rules that you have to follow while you play. They have rules that explain what a valid end state is. And that's a very particular kind of interesting puzzle, because it makes them accessible in a certain way, because you can't, for a paper game, it's unique that you can't mess up while you're playing it.
Right.
Because you're just going for a certain end state. And so I've been trying to make a game in that format for a very, very long time, and it's very hard. And so the process to finding this was partially, it was this idea of thinking about this word game that we had this half of an idea of that didn't really work. And then the missing ingredient was we had this prototype, it didn't work, and then we went and we made Good Sudoku. And Good Sudoku is basically just it's a Sudoku game that teaches you to be really good at Sudoku. Most Sudoku players play at a very low level, and we had this insight that we could build an AI that would teach you as you played. When you ask for a hint, instead of just giving you a number, giving you an answer, it could say, oh, well, it's this technique, and here's how the technique works. And so to do that, to build that game, we had to build really good puzzles. We had to build a really good puzzle generator. We had to think about all of these pieces. And the thing that I didn't understand as a game designer is I think about these logic games and you look at them and the rules are so simple and elegant and you think, oh, if I could just come up with a simple and elegant set of rules, that would make this incredible game come into reality. Because like that's what you think as a game designer. That's game design, is like all rules and stuff like that. And what I realized when I was making good Sudoku is like good Sudoku is an elegant set of rules, but the reality is if you just randomly throw some numbers on a board, it's like not only is it not a good puzzle, it like frequently isn't even a puzzle. It doesn't fit the rules. It isn't solvable. It's not a good game. And that what actually makes a great Sudoku puzzle is designing a really great Sudoku puzzle. It's like level design. It's not the rules. And so that was the sort of missing element of this previous word game prototype, is us realizing that like, no, we actually did come up with a pretty good rule set, but now we need to come up with a really good generator. We need to design some great puzzles and look at what makes them good and figure out how to pull those lessons apart and put them into a generation algorithm. And that was like the bulk of the design of Knotwords, was figuring out how to do that. And the person who I work with, Jack Schlesinger, is like really great at building puzzle generators. And it's this really fun process between us, because I can design the puzzles and then play the ones that he generates and be like, oh, this wasn't fun. And he's like, why? And then we have to break it down and figure it out and then figure out how to fold it back in. It's almost like generating, like making a roguelike or something like that. It's the same process, but instead of building a dungeon, you're building a little puzzle that someone's going to go through.
What you're saying is that the puzzles are not made by ChatGPT.
not yet.
You know, it's fascinating to me though that there's this interaction between you as the person designing kind of the way the game works, and Jack, who's creating the game the game generation engine itself, and that feels as though you must have almost like it's translating ideas into code in a very unique way, especially because it's not just you, it's you and Jack. And how does that communication work between the two of you?
Yeah, I think it's so much fun for me as a process. It's such a treat to see, because he has a background in cryptography.
Okay.
And so we came up with all kinds of techniques for how to even do this, how to like performantly pack all these words together. And so he had to sit down and come up with all these wild ideas and explain them to me. And I'm like, yeah, I think that'll work. I don't know.
Sure, Jack.
And then he does it and it gets a result. And then I have to play like 50 of them and be like, because the first time you play one, it's amazing because it's this thing that a computer did. And then the 50th time you play one, you're like, okay, this is kind of boring now. Like I see how this is working, but it would be fun if it was like this. Or this one, number 23, that was really amazing. What was really amazing about
what's
that?
unique about that?
And then explaining that to him, and then we sit and go, well, how could we like parameterize that? What does that mean, like in terms of this thing? And then he tries, and then I have to play 50 more puzzles and be like, oh, this was good. And so it's a slow process, but it's a really magical one, because at every step of the way, you're sort of greeted by this thing that's kind of incredible and doing all your work for you, and is like out of the mind of this person who I like cannot believe how he's coming up with these algorithms to make this work.
Well, Zach, before we started, I told you we were going to have 10 minutes. And you said, oh, good, that means I'm going to answer half of your question. And I'm pleased to say that you answered 1 out of 6. So, but I love
half of a question. So technically, I'm doing great.
You are
200% efficiency.
I love everything about this. This is why we really wanted to have you on the show. Just in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Apple Park, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you for coming back to AppStories. We're going to have you back, hopefully not in 5 years.
Yeah.
Hopefully before that. And we're going to try and answer 5 of those other questions.
My new project is so big and gigantic, we're going to need like 30 hours.
Good, John.
We're up for it.
Find a sponsor that will make it worth it, and we'll do this episode. Thank you so much, Zach.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Zach. This episode of AppStories is brought to you by SetApp. SetApp is the first subscription-based service for macOS, iOS, and web apps developed by MacBaugh in 2017 that offers developers a source of predictable monthly revenue and seamless user experiences with a commission as low as 10%. SetApp is an efficient way to distribute macOS, iOS, and web apps, and your users get a hassle-free way to access powerful apps with no ads or hidden fees, while you as a developer get an additional way to sell your apps. SetApp has everything from design solutions and software development tools to photo editing apps. In total, it has over 240 macOS, iOS, and web apps for users, and it's growing all the time. The SetApp team takes care of payments, update mechanisms, content marketing, and helpful support to make it easy for developers to work independently and adopt the subscription model hassle-free. Also, SetApp's rating and review feature allows developers to gather valuable feedback from SetApp users, bringing their products to the next level. SetApp shares 70% of each user's fee among developers of the applications that a particular customer uses. In other words, SetApp calculates developers' share in profit per user separately. And on top of that 70%, SetApp gives a guaranteed 20% fee to the partners who brought this particular user to SetApp. To sum up, SetApp vendors may receive up to 90% of the revenue from each user fee every month. SetApp is a strong network of software consumers waiting for the next iOS, macOS, or web app to power their projects. Looking for a new audience for your product? Join SetApp today and bring your product to new users directly. Grow your app with SetApp by joining at setapp.com/developers today. Again, that URL to learn more and sign up for SetApp as a developer is setapp.com/developers. Our thanks to SetApp for their support of the show and our WWDC coverage.
All right, we are back with another very special guest for this very special episode of AppStories here at Apple Park with some Apple Design Awards winners and finalists. And now we're joined by Swupnil, the developer, creator of SwingVision. Welcome to the show, Swupnil.
Thanks for having me.
So, congrats. How does it feel?
It's crazy. I mean, I still can't believe it. I was I was telling my friends my heart rate was like 130 during the entire presentation.
Oh boy,
I was so anxious, but it's amazing. It's like a dream come true. So super excited.
So tell us a little about SwingVision, sort of how it came to be, how you got started. Tell us everything.
Yeah, for sure. So, I've been a lifelong tennis player. That's been my main sport. And I was also previously at Tesla working on the autopilot team there. So I have a lot of experience in computer vision using cameras to basically track like moving objects. And I always had this problem that I just wanted stats on my game when I was on the tennis court. And the only way to really do that was to have this really expensive system that's used at the professional level where it's like 10 cameras on the court. It's like $10,000 per court. And there was no affordable way, basically, to get just basic stats about my game. And so, yeah, with my experience at Tesla and just my passion for tennis, I felt like maybe we could do something using an iPhone, and maybe we could do it just using one iPhone. Right. And so we took this like crazy idea and tried to make it a reality. And that's basically what SwingVision is. And so you just set up your phone at the back of the court, and then using the camera, we automatically track all the stats in the game. We can even tell you whether the ball is in or out, so we can actually officiate for you. And then it also will automatically clip highlights of the best rallies. And this is just all fully automated.
Oh, wow.
And this is all done using the Vision framework, I assume?
Yeah, well, we've actually developed our own proprietary machine learning models, but we do run it using the Core ML framework, and it uses the neural engine on the iPhone. It actually is not possible without that hardware.
That is incredible. And how long have you been working on it?
So I've been working on it full-time for 4 years now. That's when I left Tesla. But I actually started it before when I was in grad school as a kind of side project. But 4 years ago is when I started working full-time on SwingVision.
Wow. How do you go about, tracking the ball? Because it's moving awfully fast. I mean, what are the challenges of both, I guess, tracking the ball, but also tracking things like in and out and all that?
Maybe he hits it very slowly.
Maybe he does. Maybe he does.
No, it's very interesting. I mean, we actually found in the early days that if you record it at, let's say, 30 FPS, you can't even see the ball bounce half the time because it's just going too fast. Yeah. So actually now the app is just by default recording at 60 FPS, 1080p. And that now allows us to actually see the ball bounce clearly.
Okay.
And then we've just collected so much data. We have so many customers using the product all around the world, different lighting conditions, court surfaces, playing styles. And so that diversity of data is actually really important.
Right.
And
Right. I can
trains the AI.
imagine. Yeah. And so I saw that people will hang it on the fence above.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, so it's actually a stand that we sell. We have a patent on it. It's pretty cool, and it's basically like a selfie stick. It fits in a tennis bag, but then you can just like extend it and then just like hook it on the fence.
Oh, that's perfect.
It's really easy to set up in just a few
brilliant.
seconds, and then you can like check the camera preview on your watch and like start the recording and control it from your watch.
Oh,
So,
that's really cool. Because I mean, I can imagine if you set it up actually on the court, sometimes the phone might get hit by a ball, and that's not a good thing necessarily.
That's right. Yeah, if it's higher up, it doesn't really get hit. We did have one customer with a squirrel ran up to it, but it was okay. It didn't actually fall over.
That's great. That's great.
So what are some of the latest features and sort of additions that you've brought to the app?
Yeah, so one thing we just released this month actually is you can set target zones on the court. So you can say, I want to hit into these particular parts of the court. And then the phone will actually play sound effects in real time. So you'll hear if you don't make it, and if you actually make it, it like chimes and like, confirms that you made it. And it'll tell you stats in real time as well. So like it'll say like 30 out of 40 shots in and things like that. So you'll get basically real-time feedback on your progress, which is really helpful. Like let's say I'm going to do my serve practice. I can see how I'm actually doing in the session. And I can, just see that all on my watch as well in real time. So that's basically like audio feedback. And
That's amazing.
That's really the first iteration, but eventually we will actually give you like corrective feedback and tell you how to adjust your swing and things like that.
So paint me a picture here. All right. So when you're testing a new feature, so you're in Xcode, you're writing the code, you're debugging. But when you really need to test it, you just go outside and play some tennis? How does it work?
That is a lot of my time is just playing tennis with friends and testing it. But it's actually funny. No, you can even just actually take the phone and point it at like a YouTube video of a match. And it actually will work.
And it works?
Yeah, it actually works. Yeah.
Wow.
It's not going to work as well as like sitting stable on top of the fence, but that's actually a lot of our testing, and half the time our engineers are just doing that. So.
That's pretty cool. So if you're a user, could you feed it like a downloaded video of another match just to get like an idea from a pro or something like that?
Yeah, you actually can, and that's actually how we collected data in the early days. We just scraped a bunch of like pro matches from YouTube. Yeah. So cool. it does work.
Does it make better decisions than what's it called, the referee?
Yeah, so actually now it is better than the actual players on the court. So we're actually this summer going to start using it in some official competition matches at the junior level for the first time ever. And it's really crazy because up until now, those matches have all just been called by the players. Like they call the ball in or out themselves, which is even done all the way up to Division I tennis in the US. So we're really going to change that now and just fully automate it.
That's amazing.
That is really cool.
WWDC. First time at Apple Park or no?
No, I actually came last year, and I actually came as a scholar to WWDC back in like 2015.
So you've been through the whole process.
Yeah.
And what do you think of this new sort of WWDC here at Apple Park? How does it feel like?
It was great. I mean, the announcements were amazing. The Vision Pro looks so cool. That was definitely the highlight. But no, it was amazing. It was such a great event. And of course, winning like Design Award was super cool. So no, it was like the best WWDC ever, at least from my perspective.
I can imagine.
Yeah, what was it like finding out that you had won?
That was crazy. I mean, they didn't tell us beforehand. We knew we were finalists, but we had no idea, and I was so nervous. And it's always been a dream for our team to win the Design Award, but we're such a small team. We never really thought we would really win it. So it's pretty.
That's cool.
Massive
That's really
team.
cool.
Yeah. So new technologies, iOS 17, iPadOS, Vision OS. What are you thinking about for the future?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, well, we're actually quite excited about like the redesign on the watch. We do a lot with the watch, and I think just being able to kind of use the full screen is pretty exciting. And I think all the updates to the widgets on iOS will be great for us too. Just being able to surface some information when you're maybe even outside of the app, or let's say you're following someone else's match and getting results in real time. So I think that's really cool. And of course, with Vision, there's a lot of potential there to improve like the training experience, or even just playing. Like imagine you're playing with your friend and you can just superimpose like Wimbledon Stadium around you, and you can feel like you're playing there. Like I think there's some really cool opportunities there. So I think it's just going to change how we do everything, honestly.
Can you imagine playing tennis while wearing the Vision Pro?
It's amazing to think about that kind of stuff. But that's the sky's the limit, right? I mean, it's really that's one of those opportunities, I think, where imaginations like yours from creating this app in the first place can just be extended to a whole new environment, which is really, really exciting. Anything else during the conference that you've seen that really interests you, either as a user or as a developer?
I mean, yeah, I definitely like the contact sharing. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That would have been really handy this week, actually.
It
I was
would.
actually like, oh, I wish I already had that. So that was awesome. I think as a developer, Swift data actually is really cool. It's a little bit more technical, but I think there's a lot of stuff you have to do as a developer to make sure like data is like stored properly and you don't lose.
We've heard this
data.
from lots of people, yeah.
And it sounds simple, but I think it's going to be huge, and we're really excited for that, especially because we do so much coordination between like the watch and the phone, and there's a lot of stuff happening for our app. So I'm excited to just provide a better experience for our customers.
So very famously at Apple, they don't talk about future products. Do you talk about future products? Can we ask you about what's coming next? What's on your mind for SwingVision?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're happy to talk about it to some extent, I guess. But the big thing for us is just expanding to more sports. So, what we've done in tennis is great, and we love tennis. But I think what we've built is really unique, and we're really the only ones in the world to do something like this with a single camera. And I think we can bring that to more sports that need it. And so the first step for us is actually pickleball, which is growing really fast right now. Right, it's like the fastest growing sport in the world.
Yeah,
right.
So that's our plan later this fall, and then from there we'll start going to other racket sports, and maybe eventually we'll go to even team sports. But we're evaluating it kind of one sport at a time.
Sure.
Very nice. All right. Well, Swupnil, this was great. Thank you for coming on the show. Congrats again. And
yes, congratulations.
Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the week.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Great to meet you both, and thanks for having me.
We are back with our third Apple Design Award winner here. We are joined now at Apple Park in the Apple Podcast studio by Philipp Nägelsbach. Philipp, how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Could you tell us a little bit about your game, Endling?
Yeah, so in Endling, you play the last mother fox on Earth, and you have to take care of your 4 little cubs, and you need to feed them and teach them and keep them safe. And it's kind of a survival game. So if you lose one of your cubs, then it's like one of your lives is gone. And if you lose all of them, then it's game over. But it's like a minimalistic survival game. It's more about the story and the message of the game. Because like the game wants to make people aware of the environmental issues caused by humans and also affecting humans.
And what was the inspiration for the game? Like, where did the idea come from?
So we are the publishers of the game. The developer is Herobeat Studios. And they founded the studio to make a game about a message and about this message. They saw what's going on in the world and how bad it's getting, and they want to do something about it, want to make games that put you into the shoes of people really living through that, experiencing that, and then games are such a great medium to get those kinds of messages across. So they discussed it and came up with the idea, and then we talked together and we found it's great, and then together we made the game.
It's a beautiful thing, right? To make video games that have a message that, and it's such a rare opportunity, I think, because with other media, sure, you can get a message across, but you don't have that sort of two-way street with the user, with the player. And what I love about this is that you can get a message across while also engaging the other person, right, on a more personal and intimate level, possibly.
It's also, I think, because you're playing a fox. Foxes are such cute creatures,
right.
cute animals, and if you're playing as a fox, you have those little cubs there. You want to protect them.
Right.
You have this emotional connection right away, and that's important to get the message across, because you have this contrast between this cute family and the harsh world they're living in.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It allows you to put the player right in the shoes of the fox itself, right? I mean, I think that's a powerful way to tell a story, is to actually put people into that position and allow them to empathize with the characters that you're bringing to life. So as a publisher, what attracted you to this game? I mean, how did this kind of come to be? You're working with the developers.
I think it's the art style that's really beautiful that caught our eye right away, and also a game with a message can be a bit boring and just educational. But if a game and the design of a game is such that it's not just a game well designed to transport the message, but also the message improves the gameplay. Like being aware that this is a reality that can happen. That raises the stakes. You're much more invested in the game, and we're a bit in the future, like really at the brink of fox extinction. So if the fox is a very adaptable animal, if that's close to extinction, then you know it's gone really bad.
Yeah.
So that works really great to have a really engaging gameplay.
Yeah. Could you kind of express for us and explain the gameplay? What are the mechanics like for this game?
So at first you think it's like a side-scrolling game where you just walk from left to right. So you're always on a trail and then interacting with things on the way. But actually it's much more open. There are junctions where you can change paths. So it's more exploration game. And you are it's very dangerous outside because of humans that are also trying to survive. So you're only out at night. And you have limited time to explore the surroundings and find food, and then you go back. And to find food, you can use the sense of a fox. There's like the sense of smell. You find scents. Oh, there's a trace of an animal that was there, so you can follow that and then like catch a small mouse or something like that. And then you bring that back to your cubs. And later, if the cubs grow, then they're coming with you. And you have to care for them on the way and drop food for them there. And there's you have to go back to your shelter when it's day, but you can explore on the next days. Maybe the environment has changed. New paths have opened up, but also you see the environment changed. The forest gets cut down more. The river is more polluted every day or every night in this case. So you have all this environmental storytelling around you. And that's the most important tool to tell the story, because the foxes are just animals. They don't understand much. The player understands the surroundings, but the animal doesn't. Yeah.
Right. So what's the reception been like from people, from players?
They were very great. They're overwhelmingly positive, but also like emotional responses. Like, people cried playing the game, like because they saw what can happen. And that was more than we expected. Yeah, and there's a few games like that, right? That can create that kind of emotional connection with people. And for example, we talked on AppStories before about games like Alto's Adventure, for example. Those games that like, and you hear, we're talking to the developers and we hear those stories like. We get emails from players saying, I played this game when I was going through a rough patch in my life, and the game really helped me. And to create that emotional connection with people, I think it's such an incredible thing to do with a video game. And I guess that's why you won an Apple Design Award, because it's, so, and how does it feel to win an award and to get that sort of recognition, at Apple Park in front of a lot of people? How does it feel? It's overwhelming. Like, I was really excited when I was there and seeing the game on the big screen, and then hearing the name of the game being announced as the winner, and that felt great, and I felt very great for the whole team that worked on it. Like, it's great that the game gets recognized, and because the more people see the game, the more the message gets spread. So this is really important. And how big is the team? Well, the size changed over of development, but it was more than 20 people. Right, but we're not talking about 500 people. No, right, no. It's a pretty small team. Yeah, still small. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it really is.
What's your experience been like at Apple Park this week? What do you think of the place and the general vibe?
It's my first time here. Yeah, and like I've been to other developer conferences like GDC or something like that. Right. But it doesn't compare. Totally different. Like just the feeling of people being really excited being here. Like that's really something else.
Yeah,
so
it
also
really
the size and the number of people just
Yeah.
It's
Crazy.
really unique because I've done GDC too.
You've done GDC.
Yeah, and back in 2018, I think is when I went. And I love GDC, but this is very different and just it's much more unique in a lot of ways. What technologies did you see this year that excite you?
yeah, of course, Vision Pro.
Yeah.
Like I've been working past years on a VR game, and so seeing something that's close to that area is always exciting to me.
Sure.
And want to at some point get my hands on one and try it out and see
I think the
what Apple
opportunity
can do with this idea, because
Right.
it looks like there's amazing technology in there.
Yeah, I mean the opportunities for games I think are just endless with something like that. It's really cool.
Yeah, and of course everything announced about games was interesting to me, like all the stuff that you're planned for helping porting a game to Mac, for example. Stuff like that. It's always interesting.
Yeah, I think that those kind of technologies are really important. I mean, Apple's got a lot of new game technologies over the last couple of years, but things like that in particular, making it easy for developers to bring their game to as many platforms as they can. I mean, that's what allows you to have a business that works, right? And you want to bring it to multiple places. And I think that that's a good way to really help encourage Mac game development, I would think. Yep.
Yeah, and I can imagine with Vision Pro, how just incredible would it be to like see a little fox like right there.
Right, exactly.
Instead of just playing the game on your phone. Well, Philipp, thank you so much for joining us on the show, and congrats again for the Apple Design Award.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Philipp. All right, we are continuing our conversations with Apple Design Award winners and finalists, and we have with us now Leon Sasson, who is the maker of Rise Energy and Sleep. Welcome to the show, Leon.
Thanks for having me.
Could you tell us a little bit about your app? What does it do?
Of course, yeah. We started Rise a few years ago, primarily to help people feel more energy. And there's been so many people live lives so tired all the time. And true. We knew from the science that there's so much sleep science, chronobiology, fatigue science, behavior change science, and it's not applied into any really useful way to just start feeling better every day. So we started Rise, and it helps you with the basics of knowing how much sleep you really need day to day, and then helps you track your sleep debt. But then from that, it evolves into something that helps you monitor your energy every day. So you know when you're tired, you know when you're going to have those energy peaks, usually later in the afternoon, after you get that energy slump, in the midday. So it sort of starts with the basic sleep items and then evolves into something you use every day to kind of manage your energy.
I've got to ask you, what does your app tell you about your time at WWDC? Have you been getting enough rest?
So usually I keep my sleep debt under 5 hours in life. And between traveling from Miami and kind of weather delays on my flight, my sleep debt just crossed 10 hours, which is not good. But it's been worth it.
I don't think that I would be doing very well this week either, I'm sure. But wow.
No. So tell us, Leon, where did the idea for the app actually come from? Like, when was the moment you realized, I need to make this app?
Yeah. I mean, it's really back to over 5 years ago, where my co-founder and I were in college, and we were tired all the time, and we're like, that's not the right way of living life, being tired all the time. How do we solve it? And turn out it's pretty easy, but very simple, but very challenging to do well. And through a long story that maybe we don't have time for, we ended up working with some of the best NFL teams and college football teams, kind of like high-touch coaching for teams. And that had a hardware component and an app that wasn't in the App Store. But after doing that for a couple of years, we really wanted to bring that same experience to sort of everyone. Like, why is that experience limited to only a couple thousand athletes that can pay for it? How do we bring it to every single person that has a smartphone? There's billions of people that are just very tired all the time. So that's kind of where it really came from. How do we bring that experience that athletes were already doing and top performers were doing with very high kind of like touch and service into something that you can just bring, to every iPhone out there.
So without revealing all your secrets, how did you make it happen? Well, what's this? Well, what kind of frameworks or technologies, I guess, you took advantage of?
Yeah, there's a few. So the basic aspect of sleep and energy comes down to one biological system, that's how much sleep you need, and the other one is what time of the day it is, which is your circadian rhythm. And turns out that the iPhone has a ton of powerful sensors and all the health frameworks that we go very deep on, and that helps us like bring a lot of those models that exist in the science, but have been very difficult for a regular person to do something with. So trying to make what's fairly complex, kind of like academic or behavior change models into what we think is as simple as possible on the UI side and the design side, which has been a long time coming, but it's working. So
great. I wanted to ask you about that design, because I think the design of your app is really unique, and I think it's both beautiful and simple in a way that I think makes it very easy, just looking at it, just coming to it the very first time, to kind of understand what it's telling you. What was kind of the process you went through in coming to that design?
Yeah, I mean, we've gone through so many iterations, and we're a small but mighty team, and a lot of credit goes to our lead designer, Jason. And I mean, we spent hundreds of hours, if not more, talking to, people over Zoom and in the real world about like, how do you explain these concepts? And we had a lot of experience of explaining that to, let's say, athletes on one-on-one settings, but then on the bringing that to a place that the phone has to do everything.
Right.
One of the sort of core sort of principles that we go a little counter the narrative is that we actually have a very long onboarding process in the app. Could be over 5 minutes, which everyone tells you, hey, you should limit it as much as possible. But it's a time to really explain the core concepts. Of course, we try doing as simple as we can, so that when you're in, and we can show you all the data that your phone via Apple Health already has about your sleep, your steps, your activity, and then trying to distill it into sort of like the most basic items, which is your sleep debt, and then your energy for the day in something that, our vertical sort of graph over the day that I think is pretty easy to grok. And that took us a while to kind of land. And when it did, it was very quickly we noticed that users just immediately started
clicking with them. Yeah, I can see that, because it really is the kind of thing when the very first time I looked at your app, I got it right away what was going on there, even having not used it, only just seeing your screenshots on your website. It's really remarkable. What are some of the technologies you've seen this year at WWDC that excite you for your development process?
Yeah, there's a lot. I think it'll be a busy summer, but I mean, everything from the watchOS, a lot of changes, and obviously watchOS and health go kind of hand in hand, and for both sleep tracking, but a little announcement they made that a lot of people probably didn't barely notice is daylight time tracking, which is how many minutes you get exposed to daylight. And for the basic circadian rhythm and sleep science,
that's
exposure
huge,
to
right?
light is huge, and something that we've never been able to do on the Apple ecosystem. So we're super excited for that little thing that for us can really make data very accurate and suggestions a lot better. And the Apple Health system is coming out to the iPad, so we're excited to do that. And that was one of the highlights of the keynote. Seeing Craig up there mentioning Rise for iPad coming this fall.
Right. So what's your experience been like at WWDC this week? What's being at Apple Park? What do you think?
Yeah, it's my first dub.
First one.
Nice. So it's so fun. I've been to Apple Park once earlier this year, and it's obviously very different experience, and meeting a lot of people that I kind of have connections with in the Apple world, and so both meeting other developers, people that like you use their apps and sharing notes with them, that's just such a good energy. But then also meeting the teams and meeting the actual people working on, the daylight, HealthKit APIs and talking to that person and actually sharing like, this is how we would use that. And that's why we're so excited. And so I think talking to the people, and, we have experiences and we can always leave feedback on the online sort of forums and stuff, but being able to chat with the actual people at Apple that are working on these technologies, I think is fantastic. And obviously being a finalist for the awards has been an incredible honor to represent our team. So yeah.
And you really do take advantage of a lot of technologies on iOS because I was playing around with the app. You have widgets, you have notifications, you have calendar integration. You really sort of try as much as possible to have this native experience that supports all of the modern native frameworks on iOS. And I think that sort of has to be one of the reasons why Apple selected Rise as one of the finalists, because it's such a good example, I think, of here's something that does something unique and truly feels at home on an iPhone.
Yeah, I mean, and it's something that we really care about because we found that sometimes people don't need to open your app. So it's about how do we bring the experience to whatever you are. And that is your home screen widgets, your lock screen widgets, your calendar. That could be any calendar you use, obviously native on your calendar. So, and we're going to keep doing that at, as many surface areas that you already use. And if you don't come to the actual iPhone app, that's fine. As long as like you get to see the data at a glance, that goes a long, long way. So, people love it. So we're just going to keep building.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. Well, if you don't come to the app comes to you. I love that.
Yeah. It's excellent. Thanks for joining us today, Leon.
Thanks for having us.
Great talking to you.
Fun times.
All right, and we are back with our final guest on this very special episode of AppStories here at Apple Park. We're joined by Jakob, one of the creators of the award-winning Stitch. Welcome to the show, Jakob.
Thank you so much. We're excited to be here.
It's great to have you here.
How do you feel?
I feel amazing. Like this has been, last year we were nominated in one category. This year we were nominated in two categories.
I know, that's a big deal.
And then won one of them. It has been something that I have been dreaming about for 15 years. I have followed all the Apple Design Awards. A lot of the inspiration for games we have done before has been based on the Apple Design Awards. So being part of it is suddenly like peak career. I don't know where to go from here.
Well, congratulations, because it's well deserved. I think that your game is beautiful. It's just absolutely wonderful.
So tell us about Stitch.
So Stitch is an embroidery game that we basically we saw this post online on social media with a really nice artist that had done like a nice embroidery artist that had shown this like flat kind of stitching. And I know it doesn't go well on sound, but I really like the way that you have these like long stitches, not the cross stitching that goes in. I am not a fan of cross stitching like my grandma did.
My grandma did those too.
Right?
I think everybody's grandma did.
I rather want to do these nice stitches that has this long feel to them. And it was also a much bigger technical challenge to create it in a nice way, because when you're playing on a touchscreen, you want to feel that you're actually doing something. So when we develop games, we always start with doing the material first.
Okay.
We pick the material before we pick out what the game is going to be.
Interesting.
So for example, tint, we pick the paper and the watercolor, and then we figure out that, okay, you mix colors. In Lumen, we pick light and mirrors. And with here, we pick the embroidery. And then once we get the embroidery to work nicely on screen, we will then figure out the gameplay behind it. And in this case, we found useful in Japanese newspaper games. So the newspaper game that we got inspiration from is called Shikaku. It's like old Japanese game that I've been playing for years on the newspapers, because the newspaper games kind of have this longevity in them. Right. It's meant for people to solve a little bit every day. And that is perfect for mobile gaming now, because we're not dreaming of our users having 10 sessions or 20 sessions in our app a day. We just want them to pick it up, have a good time, and move on with that day. But if they pick it up again tomorrow, it's good. It means that we have created a good, nice experience for the user, and that's the most important part for us.
what's the experience like picking those materials? Like, how do you go about deciding
I'm
that
so fascinated by this.
that you've gotten the right material for the game? Because it really shows and comes through when you see the game on your phone. But what's the process like getting to that stage?
It is like, it really is a visual process where we're like, hey, look at this. This looks amazing. Let's see if we can replicate it. And I have an extremely skilled team where like it's a small team of 7 people.
Okay.
So everyone has one position. Like there's one developer, one technical artist that will usually have the biggest problems of, for example, making the embroidery look nice. So
Right.
everything is handwritten shaders. So like there's no in the hoop itself, there's no just 3D used in. It's handwritten shaders so that we get the right depth to it, the right angle.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about. So you're making your own shaders. That's really cool.
100%. Everything is handwritten in it, and then we have the nice box around. We want to make it feel like it's real and it's right there in front of you.
That's incredible. So how what sort of technologies do you really sort of tap into on iOS and just on Apple platforms in general?
So we are based on Unity and have always built everything on Unity.
Nice.
It works nicely with a small team. And since we are focusing on Apple Arcade and exclusive on Apple Arcade with all our games, it's nice for us that the only devices we have to focus on is we of course need to support iPhone, iPad, the aspect ratio of TV, Mac. The nice part about being tvOS is that we did a port to Vision Pro, and with that, we basically can use a lot of what we learned from TV of how to do that interaction and use the same controls in that.
Similar kind of like the hover experience and things like that. Is that part of it, or is it what is it that translates? Do you think?
Because of privacy, we can't do hover experience because we can't see where you're looking.
Right. Right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
But it is so precise that wherever you look and you start stitching, or wherever you touch and you start stitching,
I see.
It just works nicely. And
That's amazing.
What I really like about these ponds is that our games are in 3D, and we try to make everything look and feel as it's real. Our only barrier from not making that real is the 2D touchscreen that we have.
Right, the flat surface.
Yeah,
right.
because you can only look at whatever we do that's beautiful. You can still look at it only through a 2D screen that's touch.
Yeah.
Of course, the touch screen was revolutionary.
Right.
Because I used to play with things on a joystick or on Nintendo.
Yeah.
So being able to touch it was a massive step forward. But now when we remove that completely and I can touch it on all the sides, I can't wait to see what we can do.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I got to imagine.
You mentioned this design award, 15 years in the making. What's your path been like up to today, to this day?
So 15 years ago, I moved from Denmark to Thailand.
Okay.
I live on Phuket now in Thailand. I'm flying back tonight.
Oh, wow.
It's a short trip here.
That's a short trip, I guess, right?
It's nice inspiration close to a beach. So long story short, I lived in Denmark, worked in software security, got sent to Asia to do business deals. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to drop out of university to move to Thailand because I, of course, can't continue the study there. So I dropped out and I was like, okay, what can I do? This is 2009. And I was like, I wanted to do apps because iPhone had just come out with the App Store in a nice sense. And it was a nice way to build something nice. A friend of mine told me at that point if I was crazy because every app that was possible to make was already on the iPhone.
15 years ago.
We have heard that so much in the past, and you know what? It's never true.
So I actually skipped that idea, and then I had to come back to that later.
Oh, okay.
Where I realized that he was wrong, and there's still a lot to do.
Right.
But because of that, like I've been following for those 15 years Apple Design Awards because I'm always like, oh, they say you can't do anything anymore. But what about these winners that showed something new progress? So you could follow that progress every year. And I always dreamt about being one of those that lead the progress a little bit. Now, with us winning in the accessibility category, it's nice that we can finally show that the way we produce games is really for everyone.
Right.
How we can dig
Right.
deeper
Absolutely.
into making it.
And that's really important. And, you know, I think that's the thing about apps. I mean, that's the secret to what we do, is that there's always something to write about because there's always something new and interesting. And I think accessibility, the work that Apple's doing with accessibility really is so important, not just the people who need it because maybe they have a particular need, but for everyone, because a lot of those technologies lead to things that touch everyone's lives, not just a particular type of person. And I think an app like yours really shows kind of some of how that works. That's neat. How do you think about accessibility as you design your games?
And also, like, because for accessibility, I believe that the change language on your iPhone should be in the accessibility menu. Like, many developers think of like, oh, let me translate my game to Chinese.
Right.
Translating to Chinese is a accessibility feature, right? So why not, if people have bad vision, if they can't take fast movement, if they're left-handed, why don't you think those into the games and make the game available for them as well? So it's not like you need to help out a small subset of random people. This is real people with real problems, and we can relatively easily just consider those issues into the design, and we can take those issues that we get from support emails and just build the features, because we claim that our games are available for everyone. So of course it's available in every language, but it's also available for, I would say, almost every support request where it comes in and being like, oh, I can't play the game because of this. If we can solve it, we would like to do that.
Absolutely.
Well, and that's why you won an Apple Design Award.
Absolutely.
Apparently.
Yeah. Well, Jacob, congrats again for
Congratulations,
winning,
yes.
and thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
Thank you
it's
so
great
much,
to
guys.
talk to you.
Pleasure to be here.
All right, that's a wrap for this special episode of App Stories for WWDC. I want to thank all of the developers who joined us today. It's a great honor to be a finalist or a winner of an Apple Design Award. And Federico and I have really enjoyed our conversations with each of you today. I also want to thank our WWDC sponsor for this year's 2023 conference, that's SetApp. And of course, a big thanks to Apple and all the folks at Apple Park who have put together this incredible WWDC and let us use their special Apple Podcast studio, which is just a phenomenal facility and a pleasure to use. Thanks again to them. And you can find me and Federico over at MacStories.net. We'll be following up and writing a lot throughout the summer, all about the new OSs that will be coming in the fall. You can find us on Mastodon. Federico can be found by going to viticci.macstories.net, where you can follow him, or go to johnvoorhees.macstories.net to follow me. And we're on Instagram, where Federico is at Viticci. That's VITICCI, and I'm at John Voorhees, JOHNVOORHEES. Talk to you next time, Federico.
Ciao, John.